Okay, Ita Mixkanatani, good morning. It is just before dawn, close to 8 a.m. on Moon Day morning, November 25th, 2019. In the last part, where's the moon? Where's the moon? She must be behind some clouds. I figure there's still a sliver of her left, but maybe not. Anyway, we're leaving Itotstoi when cold arrives, and we will be transitioning into Itkanakotoi Niit tests when the rivers freeze completely over. Oh, what do you know? It's just enough open water out here on the pond. You can't see it. I can. There's a few ducks out there, probably mallard ducks. I'll know as I'm passing them. Anyhow, I know this morning I was not supposed to come to Spopikimi. That was not the plan. I was supposed to go straight to the beaver site and start chucking my hook around. Oh, look who we have here. Wonder what he was eating here. Seemed to be nibbling on something. Tanastapi kitsoi. Kitaoi. What are you eating, bud? Matskini. I can't tell what it was he was eating, he or she. All right, I'm leaving. And now she's too nervous. Now she's too nervous running away, so she's not going to show me. Yeah, I was supposed to go straight to the beaver site, not the Spopikimi, but two things. One, it's below zero, about 6 degrees below zero, and so the chances are it's going to be some ice on top of the water over there, so I might as well wait till later in the day, try to sneak out for an hour, you know, when the water's warmed up by the sunlight and open again. That's a good reason. The other thing is just I need to be at Spopikimi at dawn. You know, this is the place I want to be. Start my day. Yeah, those are just mallards there. This is the place I want to start my day. Most days. Not every day do I get to start here. Yesterday I didn't get to start here, but for the most part, this is where I want to be. So today I have a question that I want to address. This is something that was sent to me probably almost 2 weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and I've been sitting on. One of my phenology students asked the question, and I've been waiting for a chance to kind of address it, and every chance that I've had, the wind has been ridiculous and stuff, and so I haven't taken a walk and made a video, and I feel like the question's been lingering too long now, so I need to get to it. And so I'm going to make that the thing for today, as I'm going about my my rounds and stuff, I'll address this question. And it might not be that difficult. I might be psyching myself out, but I think I have quite a few things to say about it, and they seem disparate enough. I don't know how I'm going to tie all the pieces together. So the question is this. If I advocate, as I do, that we should try to get rid of our, or not totally get rid of it, but we should be more aware of, and in our cognition, and we should be less an active participant in our lives in this separation between the human and all the other species. This is something that I say I'm an advocate of. I say that, part of why I'm teaching the phenology course and offering the phenology course is that I hope to eliminate some of this sense of strong distinction between the human and the non-human, and get us back in line with the ecosystem in that respect. So the question was, if that's why I actually believe that there is no difference between humans and other species besides, basically just intellectually, we consider ourselves extremely different for whatever reason. If we're not really extremely different, then should we be watching the human beings at our sites and trying to learn about nature, so to speak, through the humans? It's a good question, right? Because it's kind of like, you walk the walk, do you talk the talk? Okay, so you say that we're part of all this stuff. So shouldn't we be able to observe ourselves and learn about nature? And so that's a really good question. And my easy one-word answer would be yes. But one word will not suffice on this one, so let's talk about it. If humans are just another species in the matrix, all things being equal, can we observe some kind of human behaviors and extrapolate from them, understand from that observation of that behavior other things that are going on in the ecosystem, other things that other species are engaged in? Because what is phenological study? What's the purpose of it? Right? It's a weird word. A lot of times when I put it out there, the computer tries to correct me and say phonology instead of phenology. Some people think maybe it's reading the bumps on your head. That's not what I'm talking about. Phenology is the study of plant and animal behaviors and events as they occur in cyclical time, both solar time and lunar time. The mainstream culture, for the most part, gave up its connection to lunar time. It kept a pretty accurate solar calendar, but not a lunar one. And in any case, so you're making these observations of what's happening in relation to the cyclical time. What are the behaviors and events going on with the different plants and animals? And you're paying attention to that why. It was very advantageous to pay close attention to that when your economic welfare and your subsistence was 100% attached to that knowledge. If you didn't have good phenological knowledge, you were not going to survive in this world. Today, due to culture, most of us, due to a particular globalizing culture, most of us do not require phenological knowledge for our economic welfare or for our subsistence. Most of us just require knowledge about how to make $1 and get ourselves to the store where they sell all the stuff that we need to eat. And that's a cultural thing. And so, to me, yeah, there are things like I see, for instance, here's a fun one. People ask me, when is it safe? When are the rattlesnakes coming out of their dens, right? People are, toward the time when they start waking up from their brumation, I start getting questions. Are the rattlesnakes out yet? How will we know when the snakes are out, when it's safe to be in the coulees, when we have to be more vigilant and observant, careful? And the answer that I give them is a phenological answer based on human behavior. And it is when you see motorcycles out and about, people start busting out their motorcycles, the old men. When they start getting their bikes on the road, the snakes are getting up. The two are timed in cyclical time. They're timed the same. So so if you see motorcycles driving around, you can bet there's some rattlesnakes up. And at the end of the season too, if you want to know whether the snakes are back in their dens, look around and see if the old men have put their bikes back in the garage. So there you have an example, modern example of a correlation in cyclical time between even contemporarily cultured human beings and other species. There's some human beings right now out for their morning run, an activity which I enjoy as well, and that I think we're built for. We have all this leg structure to us, and this posture, this upright posture and everything that seems to be for running, for long distance endurance running. It's part of our hunting background. Would we just be running for fun if we were being human? That's the real question I want to ask, is what is human? Oh, check it out. Oops. There's another porcupine. Porcupine number 2 for this morning at Spopikimi. Yeah, it's funny. Porcupines are kind of like bird nests out here. I don't see many of them in the summer, but as soon as the leaves fall off, there they are. What is a human being? I think that's a decent question, because while I don't subscribe to the story of the fall of human from nature, I do feel that John Trudell, the late John Trudell, was accurate in observing that we have forgotten our identification as human beings. We've forgotten this in the process of colonization and industrialization and the growing global culture. You know, in fact, I think today we're using the term human being wrong when we describe ourselves with that word, for the most part. Not that we aren't human, but I don't know that we're behaving as humans. I believe that we are behaving as Earthlings, or we are attempting to become Earthlings. We are attempting to change our identity in our globalization. Because a human being, if you say human, to me, this speaks to our relationship vis-a-vis other animals. You know, any kind of category, any kind of name or tag or whatever is in relation to something else. You know, it doesn't have to be divisive. It doesn't have to be a polemic identity. But say you have a balsam poplar tree in this forest, right? You say balsam poplar in relation to all the other kinds of trees. It could be all these other kinds of trees, but this is a balsam poplar, right? So I see the word human as the same as that in the broader eco-social matrix. We are human in relation to all these other animals and plants. That should be our primary identification as human. And in Blackfoot, the language around that is very interesting, because then what you would use for human would be matapi. And matapi is really kind of just speaking to being and life. In fact, matapi could be used to describe any plant or animal. Doesn't have to be a human being. And you talk about plants and animals in that same language. Like if I was going to say the eagle people, I would say pitatapi, you know, or if I'm going to say the underwater people, soitapi, you know, all the beings that live underwater. So matapi is not human alone, right? We are a life form amongst all these others. And in the Blackfoot language, that's pretty clear. In English, it's not, but it is still like human is a category that is in relation to non-humans, right? And that is not our primary identity anymore. Our primary identities now are political, national, you know, political, racial, you know. I think it's very interesting that when the psychologist Abraham Maslow came to Siksika, he observed how the white storekeepers in Gleason were very racist toward Blackfoot customers, and they treated them badly. And he surveyed a number of the elders, you know, how do you feel when they treat you like that? And the elders, you know, invariably told him, you know, yeah, it's not good. They don't treat us very good, but maro me tapi tapi, They haven't fully developed as humans yet. They're not human beings yet. You know, there's something undeveloped about them as yet that they would treat people like that. So it was kind of a developmental psychological analysis about racism that it really impressed Abraham Maslow. But I think it says something, you know, in regard to our question too. Are we relating to the world as human beings right now? And if we're not, how are we going to read our own behaviors and extrapolate from that to what is going on in nature? I mean, you can, like the motorcycle example, right? But, you know, part of what's important about phenological knowledge is that you have a set of cyclical timed events, and you know that during this lunar cycle all these different things are usually happening. And so that helps in the sense that if you're living in one area and you see some things happening in that area, then you can assume that some things with resources that are not in that area, say different plants, say you wanted to go harvest a certain berry that doesn't grow here but grows in another area, you could tell when that berry is going to be ripe by watching the plant and animal behaviors here if you are phenologically engaged in your knowledge set. But and then you can know when you have to move and when to get after it, right? But the flip side, the other side of phenological knowledge, is also understanding that there's a baseline of what you're expecting, but that things change. Hey, things are not static, things change. And so when something does not behave as you expect it to, behave or appear as you expect it to, then some kind of change is underway, and you better strive to understand what that change is and what's going on there, because your survival's attached to it. I still think that our survival is attached to phenological knowledge. But I don't think we're as aware as we should be of that. I mean, some of the farmers are. My late friend Narcissus Blood used to say that farmers in southern Alberta are more Blackfoot than they think, because of some of their, higher level of engagement with the ecological realities and cyclical time. So, I think when we're inviting that question, what, can we learn from ourselves? I think we also have to appreciate that the behaviors that we are exhibiting right now, for the most part, I mean, at least here in North America, the behaviors that we are exhibiting are out of line with the baseline expectations of how we would behave if we were human beings. What I see them as in line with is how we would behave if we were striving to become something other than humans as our primary identity, rather than having our primary identity being in relation to all these plants and animals. I think now we're political, right? That's our primary identity right now, is political, maybe racial, but that as a culture we're moving toward an identity that I think is more like Earthling, because we're globalizing and we're starting to strive to represent ourselves out there in space to a hypothetical other that we haven't necessarily encountered out there yet, and that I find like that's very curious, because we are doing a lot, we're putting a lot of risks out there to take this identity leap, and I don't know how well they're going to pay off, I'm not the kind of guy that would say, like I say, I don't think we've fallen from nature. I think we're still very much just organisms and energy from the sun, you know. So I don't think we've fallen from it. I think we're embedded in nature. The question is whether we can live as earthlings or not. I think we need to live as human beings here. I don't think we're there yet that we need to be living as earthlings, but that's the way it's going, so who am I to say, right? Okay. Maybe I'll just shut the camera for now and get back to it. I'm almost done my round here, and wouldn't mind a couple of quiet minutes with the pond. I don't know, maybe I've beaten that horse to death. Probably there's some answers in there to what I've already talked about. Probably most of what I have to say. Back here at the beaver site now, and they have been taken from my pile for sure. Overnight, they probably doubled what I left in there. You can see the wet banks. You can see where they were coming up right through here to grab their materials. And all of this stuff, like this is there yesterday, but I had dredged all of this stuff. Now they have a pile there that probably is, you know, from my stolen materials from them. So I've got to take it back, throw the hook a bit more today, take it back, and you know, it would make sense for me to drag this stuff off into the distance. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that too, because the further it is from the shoreline, the less likely it is that they're gonna go pulling it back into the water. I knew that from the beginning, but you know, it's just a matter of time. I only got so much time I can spend on this per day. They got all night to work on it against me, you know. So we'll see what I can do this afternoon. So I'm making some headway extracting the material that they cached overnight. I got to get ahead of them. I'm gonna watch the time, but I'm gonna spend at least another hour here trying to get ahead of them. And if you're in Lethbridge watching this channel and you come down in this area, feel free to lend a hand, because I'm pretty sure there's more than one beaver working on this at night to cache that much material since yesterday afternoon. I could use help. I do wonder what some people must think of this, both from the mainstream side and the traditional Blackfoot side, because I have had people pass by, just public persons walking the park out here, and see what I'm doing and kind of raise a curious eyebrow, maybe a little bit of a judging eyebrow. Hey, oh, that's very interesting, you know. I don't know whether the city's going to get any feedback on that or not, like anybody asking questions. But on the Blackfoot side of things, you know, the reality is I'm an Iachgimi. I've been transferred a beaver bundle, and so I have actually ritualistic taboos in place with me interfering with the beavers. Like, I'm not supposed to take any of their food, for instance. But, you know, those taboos, like one of the things that I really learned from my elder, late Alan Pard, was that things change, and with the beaver bundle, you have to reflect that change. And this is what makes the beaver bundle one of the most creative nexuses of everything. It's the first bundle, and it's also the one that really has to kind of bring other recognize other bundles into legitimacy, into being in the Orthodox, because it all comes back to the treaty with the animals. And in this case, even though I'm messing with the beavers, with this particular family of beavers, what I'm doing is I'm trying to communicate with them. I'm trying to communicate with them and tell them this little inlet is not a place where if you build a home and a food cache that we can coexist, right? Do it out there on any of these cut banks all along the river. But this is a problem. And so I think in order to communicate that, I mean, this is the way, one of the ways you can communicate with animals is to send them the message. It's like the deer. They know where people can hunt them and where they can't. And they're going to go to those safe spots during hunting season because they know when that is too. So I believe that with the beavers down here on the river bottom, I think if we just you know, as a city, especially as the naturalists of the city, if we decide we're going to make an effort to communicate with these beavers that you know, certain spots are going to be trouble, don't set up camp here. But you know, like, we could take these food caches and bring them other places on the river, and we can make amends for things like what I'm doing here. But the message has to be sent, and in order to be sent, it has to be persistent. So these places have to be monitored consistently, like almost daily. And any attempts to build dams, dens, food caches in certain areas that are either outflow or, you know, depending on the circumstance, sometimes outflow is okay to build a little bit of a damming in, but each circumstance, you know, dictates. This one is a crucial one because it's city water intake. So we have to send the message here. You can't build here. And in order to do that, we got to be persistent. I'm getting the ball rolling, and I'm going to need help. I'm going to need help. I'm going to need other hands and other eyes and everything so we can watch this site, so we can make sure it's monitored, so we can make sure that the message right here is sent. You can't build here. We just can't do that right now because this is where we're getting our water. I think that's fair. There's a lot of river beavers can use. Let's try to keep them from getting just trapped and killed by sending them a message, even though it's a harsh message, because I'm pulling their food away from them going into winter. And look at the water. I mean, just the other day we were half iced over with sludge, like Slurpee, half ice water floating on top. Today it's just absolutely clear. So who knows how many open water days I have left here to go back and forth with these beaver, but I only got so much time per day to spend here as well, and I need help to send the message. So if you're in Lethbridge, you want to lend a hand, now's the chance. Give me a holler. I think I've cleared as much as I can clear. Well, not as I can, but as much as I'm going to clear for today. I should get back to work at the studio. I don't think I completely caught up with them. In fact, I think where you can see the water kind of mucked up with foam right around here, that's the old material. I think on this side is the material they added overnight. I pulled a lot of that out, and rather than just piling it, like this is part of the old pile, but a lot of the new stuff I spread out there further, and I've gone ahead and made sure that the butt ends of all the branches go all different ways, because if you've ever worked on a like a chipping crew, wood chipping crew, you know that as long as your butt ends are all faced the same way, it makes things very efficient. But if they're all different ways, it's difficult to deal with. And I have observed that the beavers, when they're clipping things to be brought, like especially if they're clipping a bunch of willows to be brought back to the lodge at a distance, they will line up a good bundle before they take it, and they'll take it all with the butt ends faced the same way. So to make things just a bit more difficult, I turned the butt ends all different ways, made messy piles, and I'll be back out here tomorrow to be back at it, trying to clear up what I can. Obviously it's snowing, so who knows what tomorrow will be like, but can I get a message to the beavers quicker than they block things up here and cause problems with the city and end up dead? That's the big question. So I'm trying, giving her what I can, but I need to probably rally some help, and it's just a matter of having time to do all that kind of thing. Doing some of it right now, so hopefully someone watching here, maybe Kai Street, are you in Lethbridge? You can give me a hand. We'll see.